do.
But
Absolutely.
I think $100 is a little stupid.
Yeah.
Now, that's not just that, because they do pay for if you're traveling like I was for 75 miles each way.
I get like 15 miles each way or something like that, so it's not that much. $15 a day, basically.
Yeah.
But no, I kind of agree. I mean, I was my first whole bunch of years up there, I was still working full time as a tool maker, but that's unusual.
Yeah.
Blue collar workers who still have to work typically aren't in the state house.
Yeah.
Because it's just the time constraint is just too ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
Well, I know a guy who used to be my seatmate, and he said that he would figure out how to. I think he must have had a 4-week vacation during the year, and that's where he spent it.
yeah.
It'd be the Thursdays at the state house.
Yeah, that's
plus his regular day. So if you have that many days, you can actually get but that's that's costing you.
Yeah, well, it cost me a whole bunch because I would lose basically all my overtime. Machinists don't make a lot of money.
Right.
For the amount of, like to be a tool maker, you have to have roughly 5 to 10 years experience just to start.
Right.
And you don't get paid a lot, but where you make your money is all your overtime.
Right.
And they always do 60 hours a week. Basically, it's almost standard.
Yeah.
And so being in the legislature meant that I lost all my overtime for 6 months a year, the first 6 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And I used up vacation time to fill in the gaps, and then worked Saturdays to make up for it.
Well,
So
you can't count mine because that's my painting time. Every minute I spend here, I'm not painting a picture.
right.
So
So
serious, yeah.
how much do I owe you for coming in tonight then?
Well, I don't paint at night much, so you
Oh.
maybe don't owe me anything. And I was already down in this area of town.
Maybe.
We'll talk a little later.
I'll get the
We'll
bill.
see how brutal the hour goes. Right?
So
He might want to charge.
anyway, Paul got me in trouble. I told you before the show. Paul got me in trouble.
I am being set up here.
Yeah, this is set up. This is revenge time. So I forget what the bill was. I don't think it really much matters. But Paul was in leadership, so it had to be 2011-ish or 12.
Well, yeah, it was the what's his name's Bill O'Brien's years.
Yeah,
As
because if either one of us
Speaker.
were leadership, it wasn't any of the other years.
no, would not have been any of the other years.
So Paul's in leadership, so he's up there advocating for a bill that I thought was junk. And usually you and I voted pretty closely. I mean, there's
Yeah, we're very
rarely,
close. Yeah.
rarely there was things we disagreed on, but mostly we agreed with each other. And so Paul's getting up advocating for something, and I go, wait a second. If he's advocating it, maybe I'm wrong.
Right.
So I decide to sit in the because what people might not know, if you get these views of the legislature and you see people aren't there, that's because they already made up their mind and they're in back having coffee or drinking water. Right? They go
So they don't need to
into
listen to the speeches.
Yeah, they're not going to sit there and listen to an hour of people bloviating. But I sat there and listened because you were like voting or advocating for something different than I thought I was going to. So I wanted to know why.
Right.
And because in case I missed something. So I'm sitting there, and I think it was a school funding or something like that. And anyway, so that night on the news, I think they had Betancourt, the majority leader. They interviewed O'Brien. They interviewed the Democrats, the governor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm listening to you. So I want to do something while I'm listening because I'm a fidgety guy.
Right.
So I'm going through Shotgun News. I'm not really reading it. I'm just like going through the
Headlines.
magazine.
Yeah. Oh.
I have it open.
Oh, shot.
Shotgun News that I got from Lee Kwan.
Yes, of
Right.
course.
So I'm sitting there looking at Shotgun News. I think there's like a girl with a shotgun or something in a bikini or
Yeah.
shorts or
Well,
something.
that's not what you were looking at, of course. Yeah.
No, I would not
There's
do
a-
that.
there's a
Not,
shotgun.
no, that's inappropriate. So I'm sitting there looking at that, and they go through all these interviews, and they said, and some people weren't even paying attention, and they had a shot of me over my shoulder
Really?
It was great.
So you were reading that in the house?
Yes.
On the floor?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah. So it was. I want to get that. I want to get that framed.
Yeah.
That was.
So
that was,
did you have it hidden inside your bulletin or anything? Or
oh
what
no,
was that
no,
called?
no,
I
no,
forget what
no,
it's called.
no,
Almanac,
no. I
what
was
that called?
in the back of section 4, right on the aisle seat. So their camera's like right on top of me.
Why did you even ask for a seat like that?
I didn't ask for a seat. I just got an aisle seat for once in a row.
Yeah.
And so, it was funny because all of a sudden it was popping up all over Facebook. Oh, who's this jerk, you know?
There are worse things.
Me. It's me.
Some of us were caught.
I was pretty proud of
Sort
it.
of sound asleep once in a while, but
Yeah, I know.
it was a good place to sleep some days.
It was.
Of course, you had to learn the strategy of having it look like you weren't sleeping. You kept that paper right in front of you.
Yeah. It was actually kind of funny
I can't
too.
admit to my constituents I ever
No,
did that, but
no.
there were some
I
days where you just
shouldn't.
And that's another one of those places though where you already know how you're going to vote. You don't want to be seen sleeping, but
No.
you may just need to catch up with a couple.
I think I've almost missed one vote from sleeping.
Yeah,
Yeah, because because either I'm moving or I'm sleeping.
you have to have a good
The other
seatmate.
side doesn't
Yeah.
come and give you a courtesy.
Every now and
know.
again they do, but
Yeah.
once in a while they forget.
Yeah.
But
There are probably a couple we wanted you to forget. I'm trying to remember something to do with the unions or something.
yeah,
I can't
yeah,
remember
yeah.
what. Yeah.
Right to work.
We tried to get you out of the room. It didn't quite
A
work.
lot of things you guys tried. There was a lot of people trying to get me to take a day off.
That was your level of whatever you call it, total disagreement with some of us. Not most of us, probably.
Yeah, most of you. Yeah,
But it
I
was
know.
like a 1 point thing out of 100.
I know. But anyway, so how's painting going? So where's your artist nest?
Studio?
Nest. Oh, well, I'm actually not in Manchester anymore.
You're not?
I teach in Lawrence because the
Oh.
SNHU bought our building, and so
Oh,
it's the
I
one
thought you
where
were
they
still
built that new parking garage. For
Oh,
all
I
these
didn't know
massive
that.
numbers of students they have. They bought the building, built the garage. It's the garage right next to the baseball park.
Okay.
If you want to look at it, 7 stories or something like that. But no, so I had to go find another place to live.
To work.
SNHU was very accommodating in the way they threw us out, but it was not so much them as the Sullivan or whoever it was that was,
The landlords.
the brokering it. But they were good, and we have no complaints that way. But I have to drive an extra half hour now, so I have a major. Such a nuisance.
You didn't look for a place in Manchester?
Oh, we looked everywhere. Yeah, we looked everywhere. Yeah, there wasn't anything.
Concord?
We need north-facing light, and so the nearest thing we could find that's anywhere near a price that was
Oh,
reasonable.
why
It was
north?
Still more than we were paying here.
Why north-facing light?
That's the art form we're in. It's we paint with natural light, and north-facing light doesn't have any sunshine coming in and going across your model. Traveling across the model. It's an even light. Pretty.
Oh yeah, that would
steady.
actually be pretty funny.
Yeah, you'd be trying to paint really fast. No, that's it.
No, what
And,
you had to do is learn how to pivot the whole studio at the same time,
yeah, the whole studio
at the rate of the
Yeah,
sun.
all 12,000 feet per floor or whatever it is.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. You should have had me on
good.
the. You
So
should have.
Gary wants to build a rotating art studio in Manchester. That's
Correct.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
That's the best thing to do
your
because that
next-
way you can paint. in-
Victoria, if you're,
Because that way. Oh, sorry, I'm nuts. So, because that way you could paint with the sun, if you rotated your studio.
Not exactly, because the sun goes higher, and comes down lower.
Okay, so it's
all
got-
the
oh, yeah.
angles shift that way too. Yeah.
Well, so it'd have to.
Yeah,
It'd
that's
have to
right.
like.
Yeah.
It'd have
Yeah.
to rotate and pivot.
Yeah, get Sullivan or somebody to build that for us.
It's gotta be cheap,
Charge
right?
us
You
$4
need
a square
to-
foot. It'll
you
be
need to go
good.
into the architect business.
I
You've
know,
got
I
so
should be
many
an
great.
architect.
Yeah.
I know.
No, what's his name? Kamen could do that. He could do that in a minute. I'm
know,
sure he could make that
exactly.
happen. Maybe he could build it even on one of those, gyroscopish kind of things.
I could.
Pretty cool.
Well, I could do it on the cheap for you.
Yes.
Yeah, with a giant like Lazy Susan and a car jack.
Yeah. You can have that done. And you could hang out down there and turn it. That's what you need it. Yeah. 20 degrees left, Harry. They were some
I
flying
hear
at
Paul
plane.
yelling when I kind of nod off.
I'm picturing this. Very
Sorry.
good. No.
Yeah, I'm good.
So you drive all the way to Lawrence just to start painting, huh?
No,
No.
that's
I teach. I paint up north. My studio's up north, but the teaching studio's down here. It's proximity to population matters. You know what I mean?
Tell
I
them
would
where-
have a studio for.
Tell them where you live.
Well, I live in Haverhill, New Hampshire,
So that's what
and I
that's-
practically drive to Haverhill, Mass, to get.
Right.
It's Haverhill to Haverhill.
Yeah, because Haverhill's way up on the Vermont border.
Yeah, to have
Way up
above
north.
Dartmouth College. So, I think we're as near Montreal as we are Boston, to put us sort of right between two mega.
Oh, really?
Whatever metropolis.
Why don't you open up a studio in Montreal then?
Mostly because I'm not Canadian, but
Right.
yeah, I don't particularly have any interest these days in being one. There was a day when I really did. I actually went to school up there for a year, but there was a day when I would have been happy to be a Canadian. That day's gone.
How long you been? Because you took 'cause like when I went to college, I took up space, but you took up painting, or
Yeah, you took up space. Yeah. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah. No, I was entirely in painting. I think the first 3 years of my studies, I painted figures and portraits
right?
from 7:45 in the morning to 8:45 at night, all day long.
Just painting.
Multiple, yeah, just painting and drawing. Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I did. That was my thing, and I managed to avoid classes like psychology and whatever grammar school 101 that they have, in the first in the freshman class.
Where did you go to school?
Well, that was the art students' league. But what painters do is they study privately if they can find a really great painter who will work with them that way.
Oh, really?
The best thing to do is to get in with a single guy and hang with them a long time and really understand what that person is, if they're good. Of course, if they're not good, you move along, But the Art Students League, you could actually work with as many people as you wanted. You could jump a class and just go somewhere else for a while. So I worked with 5, I guess, different teachers at the Art Students League. But I finally found a guy who really had deep knowledge from the past, and was a good painter and really had the right kind of good connections, which I never heard. I mean, everybody was so proud of being self-taught at the Art Students, all the teachers of being self-taught. The first guy I worked with wasn't that guy. He actually gave his creds to his time with Hawthorne, who was a significant connection to Monet, and I was an impressionist. But the other guys, I mean, that was just kind of like funny how much they wanted to say that. That's never been. It's like a scientist saying, "I'm self-taught. I figured this all out for myself." When you could have studied with Einstein or Isaac Newton or something. Who would say that? Why would you say that?
Right.
No,
Yeah.
my mind went somewhere else. So, no,
Well, I hate to even ask, but you may as
We're
well
not
go
gonna
there
go
because
there.
it'll make it more
no,
entertaining for
no.
me.
I just couldn't think of when you said impressionist. I'm thinking a guy doing, imitating, Nixon and.
Yes, good point. Good point. Yeah. Yes. These days of YouTube, it might be more important than anything Monet ever thought. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I've gone to Paul's studio when it was way up north here in Manchester, and I am amazed because I didn't realize how much it actually goes into it, and I obviously
yeah.
still have no clue. But just to look at the things you've painted, and to see like if you're looking at an ocean. It's not like if I was painting it would be blue. You paint the ocean blue. That's what it is. It's blue. But if you look at the individual strokes of the paint, it's like blues and greens and yellows and it's it's like a little. Look closely, it looks almost like a rainbow type effect. But
Yeah, that's very much the background of the philosophy. I mean, what I teach is actually my background is a combination of what you might as well call purely academic, and then this whole other thing, which is the Monet thing. And what you get when you get down to, by the time you get to the end of the 19th century,
right,
is you get that as being the high watermark. Nobody who understood, even the guys who were the very best in their field, went over to visit with Monet because what the heck is this guy got going on? We've never seen it like this before. We're talking about color
right.
and light. The idea of painting, the importance of painting with color, chroma, and all that stuff, and actually making
What is
the light
what
sing.
is like?
Well, that's the intensity of the color itself.
Okay.
So a really intense color will give you more light than a color that's dull. You can
Right.
imagine that would be so.
Yeah.
So, but then you have to have that combination with good drawing. So a guy like Sargent, who actually studied and others studied in a setting, an academic setting like the École des Beaux-Arts, in France. It was a great drawing location where Jerome taught. So that was the academic training for that. And yet this guy, having really had some significant success, realized that Monet was onto something. And that's that color combination with good drawing, So put it in a simple way,
Okay.
and good well-disciplined drawing. In other words, you draw what you see and you make it look like that. Yeah, and not in today's way of thinking, which is photographic. Everybody's model today is the photograph. But it's not the photograph, it's the truth of the visual impression, the form, the light, and the shapes, all those sorts of things.
You remember, I don't know what year it was still when Bush was in, President Bush was in office, we, as representatives, got a Christmas card from him.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember it, but it was painted by a Japanese guy, and it was to your point, it was a checkered floor with a piano in it. I think it was a piano. And I thought it was a photograph.
Yeah.
But it was a painting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what you mean. Like,
Yeah.
people are trying to mimic photography,
Right.
which is kind of like, why not just take a picture?
That's right. And that's the new realism. And it was never a part of historically. There were painters in the 17th and the 18th centuries who could paint photographically realistically.
Oh, really?
None of them were great painters.
No?
No, it's a different world. That's not it. So Degas said specifically, when he saw people working like that, he said, what's wrong with this guy? Doesn't he realize that's just the field we work from? That level of photographic realism is where you start. Now, when are you going to start making a picture? You see what I'm saying?
Oh, no kidding.
No kidding. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's no joke about that. This is not realism and photography and all that sort of stuff are a completely confusing package. Even painting representationally as I do, the truth in front of you has nothing to do with photographic realism. There are guys out there, by the way, guys who amuse you, but they have this little device, they hold up their eye and they can actually see the pores on their model. And so they're sitting there painting, looking at the pores on the model from wherever distance they're at. I mean, like, what kind of madness is that? You know what I'm saying?
It's kind of invasive, isn't it?
Yeah, well, hired models, I guess. You probably have to pay them more if you study their pores.
Study their pores.
No, it was just funny stuff. But no, it's not funny stuff. But the thing I've made a point of, and I don't know if you ever saw the tapes. You can go online and look at them. But I made a lecture at the Atlas Summit one year, and we talk specifically about the establishment. This other thing that wasn't the classic history of Great Western art education took over the art education and turned it into modern art schools. And the first thing they did, though, in their process, is they threw out all the casts and all the drawing classes. Everything became just whatever. That was the standard, was whatever. But they literally threw away the basis of the entire education, which was studying the antique, studying the great art of the past.
The classic.
Literally, by copying, Phidias or copying Michelangelo. I mean, like, so what are we doing now? Oh, you're just doing, so they give you like a minute. You get to draw this whole figure, get the gesture. I mean, like madness, like truly crazy. And, so you'd lose 2 weeks. You wouldn't be able to draw for a 2-week period. The longest pose I ever had at the Art Students League was 1 hour long. Now, this is not talking about painting the figure in the classroom, but in the drawing class, I think the longest pose ever was 1 hour.
Really?
You can't do anything in 1 hour. Historically, 19th century training, you'd have multiple hours, especially in a cast. You'd have lots of time to. Now, not 6 months, which is a lot of these realists are doing now, so they can really noodle it up and all this sort of stuff. But the drawing training, even under the guy I studied with, we had 2 to 3 weeks on a cast. That's all you would get.
What do you mean on a cast?
A cast is a plaster reproduction of, say, for example, one of the beautiful things that we use is the head of Socrates.
Right, Socrates.
Yeah, Socrates. Yeah, that guy.
Right, yeah.
From the movie.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
I know who that is.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. You should put in a punchline for that.
I know.
Yeah. So you get the idea, though. That's the study. And then when you get to the figure and drawing a figure, you're doing it for the purposes of studying the figure. And who can study a figure? Who can do anything like in 1 hour, right?
Right.
You have no time to even get the marks down. Never mind get them in the right place. Never mind study what you're studying. So that's one of those things that was trashed when I'm calling it the establishment took over the art schools, and they took them over lock, stock, and barrel. And I've heard that story about the throwing away the cast in New York. They literally had the students take the cast. They walked over to the bridge, the East River, and threw the cast into the river. Done. And literally, they did that at the Pennsylvania Academy. I think one of them, they threw them all down the elevator shaft. In London, I mean, I would like to say off the
London Bridge.
London Bridge.
Right.
I mean, like this is happening all across the country, like a form of madness.
I don't understand. They're taking classical art history and just literally throwing it out the door.
Literally, your visual resource was these plaster casts made directly from the great sculpture of the past.
First thing that comes to my mind is book burning.
Yeah,
Right. That's the first thing that comes to my mind is getting rid of the past.
Yeah,
erasing.
Well, that's classic Marxist thinking. That thing. And so the first thing you know,
Wait. So classic Marxism is what?
well, get rid of the past.
Get rid of the past.
Everything is about progress. Everything is about looking forward.
Yeah, because
So Solzhenitsyn had to say.
try not to tap on the table.
I get yelled at it all the time.
Yeah, he
Paul.
gets yelled at.
Why don't you just give me some padded gloves?
I do a lot of pounding on the table.
I'll get my shoe off and give you some.
All right.
I'll give you one for you.
All right, good.
Speaking of Marxism.
So classic Marxism is the premise that whoever controls the past controls the future. So if you can change the past,
Well, or just ignore it.
or ignore
the
it, or
great
make
lessons,
it
yeah.
make it look like it never existed,
Right.
then references like right now, one of the things that the media and the I'm not going to call them liberals because there's classic liberals who are actually pretty sharp,
Right.
and then there's the radical liberals of today, which are basically trying to, if not erase the founding fathers, malign them so much
Right.
that and it's funny because they malign people like Jefferson, and it's a really it's a bad argument, because to say that everything that Paul said in his whole life is wrong because later on in life he had an affair with a goat. Not you personally. So
That's about a little off the wall.
Gary comes up with some great analogies.
I might agree with that person.
well, my point is, but they'll use that picture of the person with the goat to say, well, whatever they said or thought
Right.
is by that
Oh, yeah, it's called
association.
It's called smearing people, yeah.
is therefore
and it's even
incorrect.
worse when they can make it up and just make it up out of whole cloth, and there's something actually there, but they can make it up and then smear you with that.
They'll make it up, and the
They'll make it up,
mainstream
yeah,
media
yeah.
will
Which is
buy
It's pretty
into
sad.
it, and
which is
pretty sad,
actually
yeah.
repeat it
Yeah.
multiple times.
like, for instance, the statement
Until it becomes true, effectively. Yeah.
the statement that I hope one day my children will be judged by the strength of their character, not the color of their skin,
Yeah, absolutely right.
is a beautiful statement.
Yeah.
That statement, that thought is truth.
Right.
It is absolute truth.
Right.
Whether or not he had affairs
Right.
or whatever, had did stuff with other women besides his wife, is pretty irrelevant, because it doesn't change truth.
Right. That's right.
And that's what I think we have to start harping on, because that's what they're doing.
Right.
They're taking Washington and say, well, we can't look at this. This past summer, it was the Nike came out with a Betsy Ross sneaker,
Right.
and Kaepernick said, no, that's that goes back to racism or whatever, which
Unfortunately,
is not true.
It doesn't come from any type of truth. He has
Right.
no
Right.
education on the history of Betsy Ross. He has no idea what she did and what that flag stood
She was
for.
actually an abolitionist. So
Exactly.
he was not only wrong about Betsy Ross, but
You should have been celebrating her.
he should have been celebrating her. But the idea is they smear somebody from history
Right.
in an effort to basically mute everything they ever did or thought, which
Well,
is
that's the point there, though, is that's to mute everything that all of them ever said and the greater content of it. You know what people don't know today is about the Democrats, who always blanket themselves in the people. It's always about the people. But it isn't about the people. They actually are. They are the elitists. And all the ones I met, and so many people I met in government
Yeah.
when I was there, had these most effete educations. I mean, like, golly, which Republicans had great educations from like they were given to them on a silver platter.
right.
And so this whole thing is about these people are like, to me, the Tories versus the Whigs. These people they are the established, they're the aristocrats. And they really, really want to keep it that way. They actually want more back, into. So I say it's like the difference between the patriot and the tyrant that Jefferson talks about. We're
Right.
talking about a group of people who want to maintain or regain power from way back. You know what I mean, so to speak. If that's where their money is coming from, well, why shouldn't we be looking at that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're trying to throw all the archaic modes of painting now.
Well, painting, you see, the big issue with art, with painting, the way it used to be, right, is that, so I say this, the very definition of the word aesthetic wouldn't exist based on art schools today. I would suggest to you, if you look at art in America, or what is it called, flash art, some of these art magazines, sort of the cutting edge modern art magazines, you get sick just looking at it. You go through all the pages and you feel like washing your hands, taking a deep shower somewhere, a lot of soap. I mean, it's that filthy and ugly and nasty.
What do you mean?
The word aesthetic actually is about beauty. And the concepts of beauty and truth and goodness were always fundamental in the arts. Now, you could argue, well, some people would say, well, that's because it was the church, which, by the way, hasn't always been a bastion of goodness and truth. When you're talking about the Medici and the Borgias and all these kinds of people who are actually funding a lot of these major painters that we know about.
Right.
But those are the underlying components. So you start getting rid of old art, and you can start redefining it. You start getting it out the window. I mean, anybody looking at that portrait by Socrates, the one of who's the great Homer, the one with the chipped nose, whatever. I think it's in the National Gallery in London. But these things are such stunning works of art. I mean, like the likes of them may not still exist. I mean, it's that good, and they became the models for the Renaissance, for the rebuilding of that greatness. And it's literally what we need. And so to get rid of that base, right? Now, where are we going? To baselessness? Or where are we going? So that's really kind of a really big question, isn't it? What is their point?
Didn't Stalin or Lenin, probably Lenin, when he took office, didn't he start getting rid of all references and images of the Tsar and the Tsarina,
Right.
Killed his family and extended family and
It's ugly stuff, yeah.
some wicked, ugly stuff. So he didn't just take over; he exterminated the past,
Yes, yeah.
and they got rid of the churches because that was, they burnt some of the churches and killed them and.
Yeah, I was an atheist. We have somebody needs to get
what the
focused
hell
in
is
on
that?
this. We actually have a new star in the studio. You killed it. What'd you do?
No, I didn't. I don't think I can kill it. I think it's a tick. Nope, wasn't a tick, and it had blood in it. What the hell was that?
What kind of friends
I
are you
think
bringing
that
with
was
you,
a
Gary?
And we're
How
live.
we doing? We're live. Yes, I don't have a napkin to offer you.
I know, but I have one in my other pocket. I'll be right back.
Oh, wait, here you go. Here you go. I do. I've been painting today, so I always need the paint rags. There you go. Use that.
Why would I have a tick?
Well, it wasn't on you. It was crawling around your microphone.
Yeah. I'm thinking, where did it come from? Yeah.
Wow.
Nobody else has sat in that chair.
No, Norm was here. Norm, you bringing ticks on here again? Again, he never did. Sorry. That was really weird.
Yeah. That's called a lyric interlude where I come from.
A what?
A lyric interlude. Yeah.
He's too educated. We can't have this guy on again.
He's above our pay grade.
I know.
He's way above our pay grade.
You hear things sometimes, and they seem to apply sometimes. You know what I mean? So who knows what it might mean, right? Lyric interlude. On the other hand, it wasn't a continuation of what we were talking about, as far as I could tell.
No.
Was it we were trying to demonstrate something that relates to the arts? And
Yeah, exactly.
what is crawling around now as standing
Right.
for the arts?
Yeah,
maybe?
basically the analogy is that the blood-sucking liberals are destroying this country and trying to take our blood.
Well, you saw what
Suck the
Prager.
blood
Yeah,
right.
right. You saw what Prager said. What the left involves itself in, they destroy, and that's an interesting thing. What is that that's going on? What the left touches is destroyed. What the touch? I can't remember his exact line, but what is that? But there's something like that when you talk about the arts. I mean, they destroyed the great legacy. American art, by the way. There's so many. Like, for example, 100 really, really good painters from from the turn of the last century. I mean, really good. And you would never know it based on the art histories written in this country today. So whoever writes the history, right? Whoever wins writes the history. Well, look, and so we're talking about the institutions. I'm telling you, there's a book by Jackman, a guy named Evelyn Jackman, and it has pictures of all the painters of those times. And the book came out, I don't know, maybe the 1800s, right in that era, right, turn of that last century, and it's complete. I mean, and you would, if you look at it, you'd say, why aren't these mentioned in the history books? And there's all these good guys, Vaughan and the Paxtons and the Tarbells and all these guys. And
My uncle?
The ones you get in there, and your uncle maybe not so much.
William Hopper?
He gets in, but that's because he was down there and left New York, But I'm talking, it wasn't actually, wasn't he Philadelphia? Where was he from? I don't
How
know.
the heck do I know? He's not
Yeah,
related
I
to him.
don't
I just know his last name's Hopper.
But, yes. Yes.
So what do you think is behind this? There seems to be this change in the way that American institutions
it's
want to
simple.
teach art. What's behind it?
No, it's
What's their end goal?
It's cultural revolution. It's called what's that word they're using today? In fact, they brought it up bunches of years ago, but it's literally the march through the cultural institutions. If you actually, people who actually listen to this with any kind of positive, or even if you don't, go listen to Breitbart talk. But the march through the institutions, they realize, because economics in this country is a winner for the capitalists, because everybody's doing well. Even the poorest people here are doing better than the richest people in bunches of countries.
Right.
Those kinds of things. So it's very difficult for the Marxists to get inroads through the economy. So they're marching through the institutions instead. Why do you think they've taken over the universities? But this is just part of it, the arts. And so that's all I can say. You can say, well, why do I run around with conspiracy theories? No. I'm just saying, look who they are. So I wrote an essay about this called Art and Revolution, and I did the work of digging into the backgrounds of all the guys, the American Expressionists, for example, in the 50s. There's a group it's called the Triumph of American Expressionism. It's modern art, right? Abstract painting. Jackson Pollock and his drippings and drobblings and all that sort of stuff, and broken glass and blood, and all whatever he was doing there, and every single one of them had connections to the left, hard left, and a bunch of them had connections to the occult. I mean, it was all left. So if you follow what my thinking is, look it up, look up the histories, tell me what they're doing when they start celebrating these guys. But the other part of it that's far more important is that the beauty, truth, and good are stabilizers in a society. They give value to a society, but creating chaos takes away the moorings. Like why are they not teaching American history in the positive way? That is to say, the history of freedom. This experiment in freedom, the United States, is the most astonishing thing that's ever happened in the universe. When you talk about government versus people, this is people running their own affairs, and the point of it was liberty. That's the one thing that they all had in common: the liberty of the individual. No more tyrants, no more monarchs, certainly no more dictators.
Right.
So yeah, where's that? Where does that leave us?
Yeah, we don't typically get this deep.
Was that deep? Oh, I thought we were getting started.
No,
That was introductory, Gary.
That was introductory. Wow, I think we're in over
I
our
think it's
heads
just
now.
another aspect of exactly what you said, just trying to institutionalize the liberal thought. You got to start with the children. You got to start with the school system,
Right.
because if they grow into adults with the ability to think for themselves,
Right.
then those in power lose them.
Well, that's
Right?
right. So ideally you want people who will serve your cause if you're a tyrant. You want people to all get in line somehow, and you want to be able to manipulate them emotionally, and instead of having them be free thinkers.
So
I agree totally.
art is just one of the avenues
Absolutely
that has been taken over. It's just not as visible to us who talk about these things every day.
No,
we
you
don't-
wouldn't have known.
We
Yeah.
don't think about
Yeah.
how it's working
but
in
you
the
look
art
about
world.
how systematic it is, though, and I don't care about talking conspiracies. I just look around and see 5, 6, 7 institutions in which they did exactly the same thing. They went through their casts, and all within a 20-year period. Now, who does that? Who would think of that? For 100 years, that wasn't even a piece of a thought. They were looking to get more. Then all of a sudden, just like that. So in the Boston Museum, the Museum of Fine Arts, the school at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, the teachers that I'm an indirect descendant of, a second generation, those guys left teaching because they were taken over by administrators. The school was taken over by administrators, right? Read Philip Drew, administrator. Read about the guys that were behind Woodrow Wilson and all that stuff that was going on back then. which leads, to naturally to the Federal Reserve and the end of the states' representation at the federal level, which was what the Senate was supposed to be, and all that stuff was going on. All this trash was happening. But look at this whole idea of administrators running things. Who are they? Where do they come from? So it used to be that even in the museums, you'd have artists giving the directors of the museums the advice. They'd be sought for advice about whether this actually is a good painting or not, and whether they should buy it. What is that? Well, that was the continuity of the long history of art. And they just ripe it away, and then all of a sudden, and this is all trying to pave the way for the modernist experiment, which is the destruction, as I said, the cohesion of our culture, which gives a nation its some of its solidity. You start ripping at the foundations. That's what that is. And the West happened all over the West. They don't even have a drawing class at the Beaux-Arts anymore. Not even a drawing class of any kind. That one of my students went over there and he found that. He asked them where it was. He wanted to go see and observe what they were doing. There wasn't one.
Yeah. It's basically if you can create disharmony and confusion.
Yeah, confusion's the game. Yeah.
Then young people specifically will be looking for some sort of concrete, not even concrete, but some sort of comfort.
Right.
And the professors and people like that provide that comfort of confidence, even though they don't necessarily are confident of anything real.
Yeah.
I know I have a friend of mine that's
You're talking about like the difference between like the fear of missing out and being one of the boys and all that sort of comfort. You're talking about being in a zone where you can feel like you're one of the crowd. You mean that?
Yeah. The feeling of, because as a young adult, part of you wants to be. We're kind of pack animals. So one of you wants to be part of that pack.
In the flow, yeah.
In the flow.
Yeah.
And that, by completely wiping out all the moorings,
right,
they become more and more reliant on that professor. I know. There's a friend of mine's a professor, and he's at the beginning of his teaching a class. One of the things he's done lately is said, "I don't want you believing anything I'm teaching you.
Right.
I want you to investigate and find out for yourself what the truth is."
Right. That's right. I tell students the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But what happens is he looks around the class and a minority of students are like, yes. They're psyched. Right? They're encouraged by that.
Right.
Because now they know they can question him. Right? The larger percentage, however, are cowed by it. They're very, very uncomfortable.
Very confused.
The insecurity of not knowing this guy's going to tell me what to think and then I can just think it is very, very disturbing to them.
Yeah.
But, it's
Well, I mean, one of the easy things to do as a teacher is first you do this and then you do this and everything comes out okay. And I think the biggest body of students you usually get wants that. They basically want to come in there and have you show them how to do this and then that and then this and then they're a great painter. And you can't do it. You actually can't get there from here. You actually have to be that kind of a thinker. You have to be an original thinker. You have to have a dream. You have to have a vision of what you're trying to accomplish, which in itself you can't have because you don't know enough. But you're searching for that. What is this thing? And so for a painter to actually do that, for a student to actually do that, sets them out in a very strange place. But they have to trust a teacher for a while to give them information, but they can never take their eye off what it is. I always tell students, don't forget who brought you to the dance. Because you didn't get into painting because somebody told you something about some junk. You got into painting because it's something you loved. You saw something at some point. So it was either some of the beauty of nature and probably some combination of both, a beautiful painting somewhere, a beautiful piece of sculpture. And there's something there, some electricity, as you have this dream, this vision that's vague, admittedly, but it's not unrooted. It's rooted in, and you might even say the mind of a child, which is really impressive and important. The innocence of that child is an you know what I mean?
There's a passion somewhere that started to spark.
And that works across all fields of study in a university, right? Whether it be art or anything else. The goal here of a university is that by the time your student is ready to graduate, your student is questioning everything around them. Your student is a master of this because they had a passion for it. If it's engineering or if it's physics or something like that, by the time that person is up for their degree in, let's say, physics, they're questioning their professor. They're questioning the outcome of the math that they're doing on a
Right,
daily basis, right? Is this really the right answer?
Yeah,
is
is
there
that
another
it-
way of calculating this?
Yeah,
And but that's not what people are going to school for anymore. They're not going to school with that passion to come out at the end being the leader as opposed to the follower. They're still the follower.
Yeah. Well, especially if you don't even know what you get there for. Let me tell you a story. This is scary as heck. But there was a student that I had, and he decided he wanted a piece of paper. You know what that is, right?
No.
MIT, PhD, MONEY. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
So he wanted a piece of paper from this modern art school in town because that was the place to go get it if he was doing what he wanted to do. So he went to that place, and he told me all this stuff. He said, so I sat down with this counselor, and the counselor said, all right, in a sense, what can we do for you? Well, like, what would you like to do? Why do you want to study? He said, I want to paint like Vermeer. And she said, oh, that'll change. Now, what kind of an institution is that, right? So then, this is fun.
I mean, you could take that a couple of different ways, right?
Oh, yes, you can take that in the right way, right?
Right.
So the very next year, I got the chance to see their catalog. And the very next year's catalog, the president of the university says, we consider ourselves change agents. Now, that's a left-wing, that's a radical left-wing term. That means whatever you came in to want to do, we're going to make you useful for us. You're going to be change agents are people that take you from your path, the one that your dream is based on, into their path. That's what a change agent is. Think about it, but he wrote it there, literally. Now, you could say we mean 10 other things, change agent. That's not a word in common use. That's a left-wing word.
Yeah.
Change agents is not a word that you and I use talking about our children.
Right.
You want to encourage your children to be fully who they ought to be, what they're aspiring to be, what they're made to be internally from within. Right?
Yeah, the only time a parent is a change agent was when they're still in diapers.
Yeah. Very good point, man. You're quick.
Yeah.
Just visualize this whole thing really good.
Yeah.
Of course, that's what they think about a lot of these kids. I think they're just in diapers. We can change this.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's it, or if they, like you said, are change agents. In other words, they see their jobs as molding children into specific pegs to fit in their.
It could be. Yeah.
Where they have what they're designed for society.
Is that what schools are for?
No.
Yeah. I mean, that's not my mind what schools for.
Well, that's
I wouldn't
actually
send my kid to a school that was going to turn them into some zombie that would spout their lines. I'd say, my kid, what do you want to do? In fact, I've said to my kids, you want to go to college, I got to know what you want to go there for. What's the reason?
Right.
You're not going to college to go to college, right? That's a big deal, though. So what's the point? So that's
it's not just to get drunk.
Well, that's the other point. That would be a really good reason compared to some of those today. I mean, what's wrong with a good
ever
party?
see Animal House?
No, actually, I never have. Actually,
No, you haven't.
I don't think so.
Well, you know,
I know I've missed my education. I did see Empire Records. Was probably just as funny.
You ain't as as cultured.
No,
you ain't as cultured as me, Paul.
I know, definitely not. Yeah. That's called pop culture, and you're pop, right?
I'm super. Yeah, I'm pop. Hop on pop. So,
he had something to say.
go.
I don't think I did.
Oh, sorry.
No.
It was right there on your
He
tongue,
always
and we
has
went
it.
into this dark place,
No,
and you
he's-
lost it all.
I'm always thinking.
He's always really good at having like that inquisitive look.
Yeah.
He could
Yes.
be off in left field, but he doesn't.
I'm actually sleeping.
That's a good strategy. Yeah. Make sure you do it with your eyes open so everyone notices. Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I think a lot of the institutions, like you said, that phrase "change agent." There are a number of students who come in and they have that vision. They plan to be that student that at the end is questioning everything and is taking over, the future of that field. Right. Unfortunately, the folks that are teaching, right, the administrators, they don't want to lose that power when the students graduate. Right. So they're training these students to continually think that there is someone else who's going to tell you what to do, right? Well, like Gary was saying, when students, everyone is trained to look towards someone else for the answer, and that someone else is the administration, the government, right? And that's what they want. They want
very
you.
un-American, too.
They don't want you to think and push the boundaries. They want you to, when you're done with your education, they want you to look to the government to carry on everything for you.
So much for the self-evident.
Can I interrupt? Just because I lost track of what we were talking about. So, Representative Jane Johnson says hi.
Oh, well, yeah. So is she in the House this year?
No.
no,
She only
okay.
was on
You saw
there
her
one
elsewhere.
term.
Yeah.
But she remembers sitting next to you
Oh,
for
yeah.
one term.
Oh,
Really,
it's a
really.
delightful thing.
She is a nice lady. She's a
Yeah,
really
she
nice
was.
lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems. I think one of the focus, if you look at the focus of a lot of college too, and they're pushing it, are the what do you call it? Science, math. What do you call it? What is that?
Oh, the basic. The 3 R's, that sort of stuff, you mean?
No, not writing. Math,
The humanities,
science.
the
No,
sciences.
just tech. They're pushing tech, math and science. I forget what the term is.
STEM?
STEM. They're
Oh,
pushing STEM
okay.
super hard.
Right.
So you have to think about what that really means. If they're pushing STEM really hard, they're pushing for kids to come out with technical degrees in math, science, programming, robotics, whatever it is.
Right.
Okay, that's really good if your purpose in life is to become a peon for some corporation. If your entire purpose in life is to be a robot
Right.
at a company, pressing the right digits at the right time,
yeah.
that's a great education.
Right.
You come out, we plug you in right here. We got a spot for you.
Now,
Right?
if you want,
We don't care what you went to college for or what you thought you went to college for, but we're going to plug you in here. We're going to plug you in here, and you're going to work for us.
Well,
right?
except that a lot of kids do go into school just because to quote get a job. Why they don't? The reason more kids don't go into the arts in my form of the arts is because, as my dad said, how can you make a living at that? You know, and that's not an unimportant thing. But the real point of life is not simply to make a living at that. It's actually to find your calling. You know, find what it is that you're really good at, and
Answer
find a
before
place
they
to
hang
do
up
it.
on us again.
Yeah.
Hello,
gotta
you're on Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. How you doing?
Yes, hi, good evening. Former Representative Hagan.
Hi,
And
Barbara.
just want to say it's really good to see former Representative Ingbretson. We served on the House Education Committee together.
Yep.
And I'm so glad that you're talking about these issues because I don't know what's wrong with taxpayers or people that have to send their children to our public school system, but it's definitely broken, and it's not addressing the situation that one size does not fit all. Like we don't all wear the same shoe size, we don't all learn the same, and it's just you're touching on a lot of issues that I hope people can embrace and think about, especially going forward after this horrible election we just had in Manchester. So thank you for your program, Gary, and it's good to see you, Representative, and we'll just keep plugging on.
Thanks, Barb.
Oh, fantastic to hear from you, Barbara. Really nice. Yeah, Barbara was always in that. And at State House, there were homeschool people and that sort of, there was a bunch of guys who were just, you sort of wondered what the speaker was thinking, putting homeschoolers on the, with the whole purpose was to get money for public education, And a couple times when we were in there, we had these really hardcore public school people, way left, a couple people, including a chairman once, who when I asked her what she meant by, I said, you guys, when you talk about socialization, you actually don't mean that they know how to behave with their friends, do you? She said, no. And I said, explain it, what you do mean. And she said, we mean that people should be all somewhat the same so they all get along.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that's called socialization. But what it means is indoctrinating kids and stuff and getting them away from their home trainings, their churches, and all those things to get them into this common thing. What is that thing? Well, and who wants people to be like that? So America was out of many one, right? We're all diverse. That's the strength of America, is the diversity.
We're united, not all
Yeah.
the same.
And in the classroom, too, it's the same thing. We'll talk about that in a minute.
And don't we have a Representative Lee? Is that her name? Who has some disdain for private schools? And
Oh, she called.
And
She
is on the
she used a
education
cuss
committee?
word.
Yeah.
She used a cuss word.
Yeah.
But if
but
you,
she's on the education
Yeah,
committee,
that's scary
right?
stuff.
And
those are
and
vested interests lots of
that's
times.
someone who we have making policy for us.
yeah, she doesn't. She's not. She's obviously not open-minded about it. She has a resentment towards homeschooling. And then you saw the Democrats in Concord. We have 5 minutes left, but we have the Democrats in Concord just rejected $46 million for alternative schools.
Yeah.
In,
Is that
in
charter
Concord.
related or just all kinds of stuff?
I think it was for like these different schools. Oh gosh, I'm gonna forget the name of it.
Like special needs types of things?
No,
or-
like just special schools. Like they've got a school right now, and I don't know why I can't think of the name of it. A friend of mine's actually has a big part of it, Dan, and it's teaching basically when the kids get out of there, they'll have almost like a not an associate's degree, but a lot of experience in robotics.
Oh, yeah.
Which is
so-
which is pretty cool. Like I told my grandson, I kind of encouraged him a little bit to go there because he had the opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
Because I said, well, if you go there and you don't really like robotics, you can make so much money at it. You can
now you're
afford whatever school.
He's taking this backwards now, isn't he?
Well, no, it's the same thing with he's actually ended up at the vocational school. But I said, get a vocation, then you can pay for whatever college you want.
So you fit into the category of John Gardner, the author. He said if you want to be a novelist, first thing you either really marry a really rich woman, or you get a doctorate, become a doctor, get a doctor's degree, and then you can afford to have your career as a novelist.
Right.
Become a lawyer. He could have said John Grisham, people like that.
Yeah, well, it's kind of the same thing, but it is true that it's difficult to get I don't know how you managed it, but most people would have a hard time coming out of school with a degree in art.
And where's the job?
Where's the job? I know my
well, that's the best part of some
my
of the art
nephew
schools.
did that.
They do have things like technological aspects of this. So there's computer arts and stuff like that, which are so they're great in the movies when you're doing whatever that's called, electronic
CGI.
Yeah, CGI, all that stuff. Yeah.
But I mean, there's also marketing agencies and you need to be doing a lot of artwork for marketing agencies, drawing up advertisements, and there's
lots of
plenty
design
of
areas,
industry,
pure and simple design.
art and design. I mean, even your basic software industry has an entire department that's devoted to artwork,
to visual. Yeah,
so.
and that's classic commercial art. Hey, could I, before we get out of here, could I just address one point you made? Because I found it was the absolute.
First, I want you to advertise for your. We only have 3 minutes, but tell us how they can get in touch with you if somebody wants to actually learn how to paint, as opposed. And I don't mean paint like paint a wall or something. I mean like actually.
Yeah, learn how to paint. What I teach is representational skills. So I empower you to paint whatever you see in front of you with authority and power. Yeah, truth.
Authority and
Really.
So you give guns?
So you're good.
Do you get like guns?
No, grenades, but no
Grenades,
guns.
no grenade, okay.
A lot of paper.
Sorry.
But no, we have. Look at studio.ingbretson.com, and you'll see my work and a bunch of my students. You can also go to bostonschoolpainting.com, which is where I have a bunch of images and writing about the Boston School, which is what I'm most directly personally related to. As my where I come from. And then the third one is they can get online and type in Paul Ingbretson Talks. And this is my great point for the night. And then type in the word list, and you'll see 100. I've now done 100 videos.
On YouTube
Yeah, in less than a year. They're on YouTube now.
Yeah, I saw them on Facebook. They're on Facebook too.
Oh yeah, I put them on Facebook, and you're on that list, I think.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, they're on, but they're just on YouTube, and so you can go and type that in and look at that. But you can listen to what I'm saying and see if you think I'm insane.
Well,
Well, never mind that. We can
Aren't
just
all great
bypass that
artists
point.
insane?
Well, most artists are left wing, so you can imagine it might be true. We know Jackson Pollock was mad and shot himself at some point, but I shouldn't. That's not okay. I'm sorry.
What was the guy who did the cod picking tomato cans? He seemed like he was out of his.
Yeah, Andy Warhol. Yeah, he had some
Yeah,
issues.
Warhol.
A
Yeah,
couple
he had a
issues.
lot of
yeah.
issues.
It sort of ended that way. No, but the one thing Barbara was bringing up, though, is huge. And we should say it on her behalf. She took the trouble to call us. But that is the biggest thing that we're dealing with in the public schools is their incapacity to work with individuals in their own as they would be inclined to go. there's a scripture in Proverbs, and I had a Jewish scholar explain to me what that means. The scripture says, "Raise up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he won't depart from it." It doesn't say that. It says, "Raise up a child in the way he's inclined to go." In other words, help people find their inclination and help them work it out, help them search it out and find their way. That's not what schools do. They're indoctrination centers, but that would be the truth. Even if you're a homeschooling parent, you really can't hardly homeschool. I can tell you, as being one, you can't hardly homeschool without helping your kid find his way, because they're going to balk. You have to be following their interests, and their interests are fascinating as can be. But what do they love, And you'll find it in the writing, you'll find it in whatever. But and it's useful, for people to look up Dorothy Sayers, talking about education as well.
Paul, you're the best.
I don't know how you can say that. But
I can.
I'm working on being good.
Halfway decent.
Yeah.
Josh.
I shook hands with Josh. I have.
All right.
First time I met you, Josh. Really nice.
Anyway, folks, we'll see you next week. We have Go New Hampshire on next week.